Live from downtown Detroit, home of WDIV and Click on Detroit, Local 4 News at 5 starts now.
President Trump tests positive. A number of new developments at this hour as the president and the first lady are isolated inside the White House. What does this mean now for both campaigns with a month left to go before Election Day?
Police aren't calling this murder. They're calling it an execution. My Warren police say the FBI needs to step in after a woman and a 6-year-old boy are killed.
What were they looking for? Auburn Hills Police and the FBI spend the day in the basement of a Coney Island on Detroit's west side. We've just learned it may be connected to a case that's gone cold for almost 2 decades. But we're going to begin, though, with breaking news from the governor's office. After seeing a steady rise in cases in the Upper Peninsula, Governor Whitmer has put that region of the state back into phase 4 of her Safe Start plan.
Now that means indoor gatherings are limited to 10 people. Anyone who can work remote will have to, and required mask policies at schools. The governor's office says the changes go into effect next Friday. Meantime, our other major story we're following tonight, President Trump tests positive for COVID-19.
Let's get you caught up with the latest here as we hit the top of the hour. Just in at 5, the White House says the president has been given what it's calling an experimental antibody cocktail as a precautionary measure, and that he is experiencing fatigue since testing positive. Both he and the First Lady are isolated in the White House residence at the moment. Also of note, Republican Party Chair, Michigan native Ronna McDaniel has also tested positive.
Our Paula Tutman has been gathering reaction from the Michigan delegation, and Jason Colthorpe is following Joe Biden's campaign stop in Grand Rapids, his first appearance since the news broke.
We'll get to them both in just a minute. Let's start our coverage, though, with Alice Barr in Washington with the latest. Alice.
Good evening. President Trump will be closely monitored while in isolation at the White House as stunned reaction is pouring in around the world from heads of state to stock markets. With one late-night tweet, President Trump has become the face of the COVID-19 pandemic, announcing both he and First Lady Melania Trump tested positive for the virus.
They remain in good spirits. The president does have mild symptoms.
The White House offering only vague details.
I'm not going to get into any particular treatment that he may or may not have.
At 74 and overweight, the president is considered at higher risk for serious complications. He and the First Lady are isolating inside the White House.
For the president, there are specific factors that put him at a higher risk for serious complications, so the next few days will be critical to monitoring the president.
Now begins a high-stakes hunt for anyone President Trump has had contact with during a busy week, including Tuesday night's debate, during which the Trump family violated a mandatory mask mandate. The president's senior advisor, Hope Hicks, who traveled with him this week, tested positive yesterday. The White House chief of staff saying today they learned of her diagnosis as President Trump was leaving for a New Jersey fundraiser last night.
It was deemed safe for the president to go. He socially distanced.
Hours before revealing his diagnosis, the president downplayed coronavirus in a pre-recorded message for a charity event.
I just want to say that the end of the pandemic is in sight.
Democratic rival Joe Biden sending his well wishes. He tested negative today. President Trump forced to cancel in-person appearances in a critical setback to his campaign, if not his health, 32 days before the election. Vice President Mike Pence tested negative today, along with several other top officials. The White House assuring it has plans in place to keep the government running smoothly. In Washington, Alice Barr, Local 4.
With the Trump campaign postponing all of the president's events, there were questions about Joe Biden being potentially exposed at this week's debate.
But after testing negative this morning, the former vice president is back on the campaign trail and back here in Michigan. Jason Colthorpe following the Biden camp's trip to Grand Rapids. Jason.
Yeah, Devin, and boy, I tell you, having the candidates not shake hands before the debate looms so large now. With all the contact tracing going on with the White House outbreak, it goes all the way back. And today, Joe Biden and his wife Jill Biden were tested twice, and their personal physician put out a statement saying they are both negative and they were able to resume the campaign trail. That brought Joe Biden to Grand Rapids a little earlier today. This event was supposed to begin around noon, but after having to be tested and then all the questions about whether he should be campaigning at all with the president and the first lady in quarantine, Of course, that pushed things back several hours. And he started speaking about 4:30, spoke for about 22 minutes. And he used this, certainly the situation with the president, to again hammer the need for Americans to wear masks and encourage others to wear masks. He also talked about job loss, specifically in Michigan, and how his plan is to get them back. Here's a little more of what the former vice president had to say.
Michigan has lost more than 361,000 jobs since the beginning of 2017. In fact, factories were already closing before COVID, like the Knoll plant here in Grand Rapids. They announced back in January they were shutting down and cutting 210 local jobs. Manufacturing has already slipped into a recession last year. The net loss of auto manufacturing jobs you saw here in Michigan. And that economic pain was only amplified by the pandemic.
The former vice president had another campaign event scheduled for tonight, but that one was going to be inside for a bit. He conferred with people on the staff. They decided they're going to cancel that. We have to wait and see what happens with the president's campaign schedule going forward, but you're likely to see a lot of his surrogates popping up in his campaign stops that were already on the schedule. Reporting live, Jason Colthorpe, Local 4.
Okay, Jason, almost immediately after the news of the president's positive test came out, reaction, of course, began pouring in from across the country, around the world, and here in Michigan, too.
And for that part of the story, we turn to Paula Tutman, who spent the day reaching out to the Michigan delegation. Paula.
Hi, good evening to you. I talked to several different members of the Michigan delegation, including one who would like to be a part of the delegation, and I found them to be very concerned and empathetic. The news shocking to most, but not surprising to many.
It's not a political issue. People are dying.
Governor Gretchen Whitmer said in a statement today, the virus doesn't care if you're rich or poor or Republican or Democrat, young or old. No one is immune, not even the president. Here's the good news. We can beat this enemy, but it's going to take every single one of us working together to do it. Democratic Senator Gary Peters spoke to me this afternoon from the campaign trail.
There's no question. I wish President Trump and the First Lady a quick recovery. We don't want to see anybody sick. And this is such a harmful disease, too. We're learning more about it. It's not just the immediate symptoms and, of course, what could be significant health consequences immediately. What we're learning is that there are long-lasting impacts of just having the COVID disease.
Republican John James is currently running against Gary Peters for the Senate. And while he declined to do an interview, his office did send a copy of his tweet that says, "I'm praying for the First family after hearing POTUS and FLOTUS have tested positive for COVID-19. Wishing the president and First Lady a speedy recovery." Democratic Senator Debbie Stabenow says,
"Well, I really wish the president and the First Lady and all of their staff that have tested positive, the very, very best for a speedy recovery. I mean, this is not something you would wish on anyone. We should be passing right now another package to help people survive COVID-19, another package that helps families and workers and small businesses in Michigan. There's tens of thousands of airline workers about ready to be laid off right now. We don't need that. We don't need more people without a job.
Yeah, and there's another really important piece of this. We need to talk about information, truth, and transparency. Devin, you mentioned at the top of the show that the White House is saying that the president has been given an experimental cocktail. We're also hearing that he has mild conditions, and we're also hearing some other national reports that he may actually be running a fever. Listen, tonight at 11, we're going to talk to a Michigan lawmaker who says this is a matter, truth in this is a matter of national importance and national security, and he will explain why he believes that we should not be listening to the information that's coming out of the White House, but should instead demand an independent review of the condition of the First family.
You got it right, Paula. More obviously coming up. Now, with the president testing positive just days after the debate, we wanted to know if it was possible that he had COVID while on the debate stage, even if his test did come back negative that day. Our Dr. Frank McGeorge had an answer that might surprise you.
Even with daily testing, it's possible for someone with COVID to be missed. The tests aren't perfect, so it's possible that a negative on one day may simply be a false negative. Also remember that during the incubation period at the start of the illness, it's possible to be mildly contagious but still just not test positive. The risk to Joe Biden is minimal since they were notably careful to follow precautions, mask wearing inside the venue and maintaining distance when he was at the podium on stage, not wearing a mask. Still, I have no doubt that everyone in the Biden camp who was at the debate will be closely monitored and tested.
All right, Frank. And the team at clickondetroit.com has been constantly updating this story since it broke overnight. Right now on the homepage of the app, you can find our live updates as they come into us, including a White House memo clearing the vice president from needing to quarantine and the announcement postponing all of the president's planned campaign stops. All right, now to today's coronavirus numbers in our state. Michigan reporting 780 new cases over the past 24 hours, putting that number on a two-day downward trend. Also, along with that, those 7 more Michiganders who have died from corona. In other news tonight, a bizarre scene that unfolded for hours today at a Coney Island on Detroit's west side. Auburn police and the FBI served a search warrant at the Galaxy Coney Island on Schaefer and Grand River. Our Tim Pamplin was there and has new information on what they were looking for.
Multiple law enforcement agencies descending on the Galaxy Coney Island here at Grand River and Schaefer, that Schaefer 96 area, including the FBI, Michigan State Police, Detroit Police, and Auburn Hills. Here's Auburn Hills Deputy Police Chief.
We got probable cause in an investigation to believe that a homicide victim was buried here at some point in time.
The case is that of Rita Georgi. She went missing in 2001. A victim of domestic violence. Her car found abandoned at the Showcase movie theater in Auburn Hills. Police quickly developed a suspect, her ex-husband, Koja Georgi. At that time, her ex-husband fled to Kosovo, and there hasn't been an extradition treaty with that country until last summer, when the FBI picked him up and initiated extradition proceedings.
In the morning of his extradition hearing, he took his own life in his cell, his jail cell.
Auburn Hills police say they're not giving up on this case. They say the victim had 2 young daughters, now in their 20s.
And at this time, I can confirm that there's been no remains here found at the restaurant.
The investigation continues. That is the scene on the west side. Tim Pamplin, Local 4.
Okay, Tim, much more to come on a very busy Friday. Let's get to Andrew, who's in for Ben. Andrew.
And Karen and Devin, we're looking at chilly conditions as we go through this evening. Colder tonight and prompting a frost advisory. We'll talk more about this and your complete weekend forecast coming up.
All right, Andrew, thousands of Detroiters left waiting for the bus. The DDOT system comes to a grinding halt as workers walk off the job. Sean.
The massive manhunt continues for the people responsible for killing 3 people, including the execution-style murder of a 6-year-old boy.
It's no good reason to kill a 6-year-old.
The family of that 6-year-old Tyrese Moore finding the strength to speak with us tonight. They have a message for you. They have a lot to say, a lot they want you to know.